Is this on? Okay. John Semley with the AV Club in Toronto. This is for David, Mr. Cronenberg, sorry.
You could call me David.
Okay, David. So this is now, you've done a number of adaptations, and many of which have been works of major novelists, Burroughs, Ballard, now DeLillo. Are these works that you feel a particular affinity with as an artist? And I'm wondering in this case with DeLillo, with DeLillo's prose, with DeLillo's sort of postmodernist outlook, what exactly that kinship might be. What is it that attracts you to his work?
Yeah, I really don't think of it in those terms, you know. I mean, I just read the book and I thought, yeah, this could be, I like this. It's complex, and I also don't analyze. I mean, really the way, you know, we approach the script and the acting, brain dead, basically. That's how I approach the, you know, there's no rules or there's no agenda. I mean, some people think that I have a whole checklist of things that I look for in a project, and I don't. So I was completely surprised by Cosmopolis because I have read DeLillo, and I did know that Scott Rudin many years ago bought the rights to Underworld, and I thought that you could make 12 movies out of that book. I wonder which one will get made. And of course, none of them got made. And so I wasn't really, you know, I was surprised that I immediately, 2 days later, could phone Paolo and say, yeah, I want to make a movie out of this. You know, it takes you by surprise. And certainly the whole idea of filming unfilmable novels is not in my head at all. I mean, I think they're filmable. That's why I filmed them. And it's not as though that's a challenge I'm looking for or anything like that. I mean, on the contrary, the easier it is to do it, the happier I am. I'm fairly lazy that way. So, but the thing is that a lot of screenwriting is really abysmal, you know. Screenwriting is a completely different kind of writing from novel writing, completely different. And about the only thing that ends up on the screen directly from a screenplay is the dialogue. So you can be your grammar can be bad, and often it is from really professional filmmakers, terrible grammar, terrible spelling, inept writing, but their narrative structure is okay and their dialogue is pretty good, you know, so you can still have a career, whereas none of that would really pass muster in a novel, I think, even a bad novel. So, but I do appreciate good writing because in a novelist like DeLillo, there's just such depth to what he does, you know, and there's the resonances of the dialogue is fantastic. And I mean, it's like the Bible, you know. There's a quote for every situation in the screenplay of Cosmopolis, and I don't take credit for it because I really just transcribed it. You know, it's all his dialogue. So it's just the richness and the depth and the complexity, the things that you don't get from most screenplays.
You know, if I could just say that there are a few directors who are as literate and well-read as David, and we talk about literature all the time. And you know, when he called me and said, you know, I think I may have just written a screenplay. No, I have written a screenplay, and it's from this Don DeLillo book. And I said, oh, which one? I've read all the Don DeLillo books. And he said, that's what I thought. I thought I'd read all the Don DeLillo books. And there's this book called Cosmopolis, which I hadn't known about. And I said, I haven't known about it either. And that's what this, you know, that's the genesis really of the film, was discovering in the work of DeLillo, who's a great writer that we both admire, a book that we hadn't known before that it turns out is filmable, not just filmable, but is a brilliant, brilliant film.
Gloria Martin.
Gloria Martin, 680 News and Rogers Radio. For Mr. Pattinson and Mr. Giamatti, could you talk a little bit about that whirlwind scene you do together and what the motivation was for each of your characters, what you're thinking during that scene?
Rob, would you like to jump in? Well, like I said, I mean, you know, he's a guy who feels wronged deeply somehow by this man specifically, and then by the world at large, and he's obviously got some mental health issues that come along with that. But you know, as I say, it's. I think in some ways, it's what was interesting for this guy is, you know, he doesn't expect this man to walk into his apartment. It's kind of, it's fantastic, and sort of, you know, he's here with me, and I get to have him all alone for 20 minutes, you know, and I get to talk to him, and so it was all these kinds of emotions of that. But like I said before, it's, you know, I envy him, I love him, I want him and need him, and because of all that, I can't stand how much I want all those things from him. So it was a lot of what was going on for me.
I just thought about something as
Yeah.
well. You're shooting at me before I come in, and then you go to the bathroom.
Yeah. No, I know. It's totally bizarre. There's a lot of weird things. No. Yes, I'm shooting at you before you come
completely
in.
relaxed.
But how much I'm meaning to hit you or not is always a question with it too. You know, I mean, how much when you come in there do I know I'm gonna kill you or want to kill you? How much do I feel like you goad me into killing you? How much do I want to get you to come up and see me up in my place? You know, I mean, it's interesting. You know, all that stuff. I gotta go to the toilet.
There is, like, I think there's an ease between them as well, which is
That's also
yeah. It's not a confrontation scene like a normal confrontation scene. It's both of them really, you know, they want answers from it.
Yeah.
I can't even explain.
No,
what
there's
it
some weird way, and it's not anything I said to you after I saw it the first time. It's not anything I was thinking consciously when we did it. Just in the script that the second we meet, it's like we know each other. We know all about each other in some weird way, and then we're going to sit down and analyze each other. It's very peculiar, and that just sort of came out just because of the way it's written. It wasn't anything I was conscious of.
Yeah, and also I remember David was saying the night before, because the scene was written just two guys sitting across a table, and they were there the whole time, I think. And and David was saying, you know, I can't tell if that's interesting or if you know, we should move around. I was like, this is a 22-page long scene.
Somebody better move.
But when we got there, it kind of just, I had one idea, which was I hadn't even seen the set, and I just wanted to do a scene talking into the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
And I just thought that would be funny. And then so I kept thinking, how can I get into the toilet?
That's great.
And then there was a porta potty. It wasn't even how I expected it, and but because of that, when we started moving around everywhere, and also because the set looked good, it looked really cool. I mean, there's all this interesting stuff, and so we
The
just
set
kind
is
of,
brilliant.
Yeah.
The set is brilliant because it's an office.
Yeah.
It's got office furniture and computers in it. It's my office. It's great. You know, he talks about his office, and then he comes to my office. You know, it's great.
I mean,
It's brilliant
the pile of computers, that wasn't
None of
any
it's-
relevance, was it? They just had a pile of computers.
No, not relevant and not in the script. I mean,
No.
that was
Somebody-
Arv Graywall, our production designer, and I were talking about what the space should be. And when a production designer gives me a great space, I use it. I always do. We get to see all of it. I mean, a lot of production designers end up complaining that they did this great stuff with great detail and nobody ever sees it and it's never used. But I really feel that one of the things that actors can give me is the choreography, you know, is the movement and how you move around and how you move relative to each other and who sits in what seat. And then they switch seats, you know, and power is suggested by the seat. Of course, in the limo, the center throne design was my idea, but at the moment at which suddenly Eric abdicates and no longer is sitting in that, and Cosmo is sitting in it, and Samantha Morton's character is sitting in it, and he's no longer sitting in it. All those things mean something, and they mean something to the audience too, even if they're not conscious of these subtle shifts in power. And so in the set that we have for the final 22-minute scene, there's all kinds of subtle shifts by power, and there's a sort of moment when it's like a priest and confessing a penitent. Suddenly, Eric Packer is the priest, and Benno is confessing. You know, and you can see that and that's just using what was there, what was given by the design of the set.
We just have time for two more questions. It's